Welcome back to Spectrum Sundays, where we introduce professionals and self-advocates who play an important role in the autism community.
And this week, we are so excited to welcome a fellow autism advocate and speech-language pathologist, Chris Wenger, who is more well-known as a speech dude on Instagram. So thank you for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. It's going to be a fun little run here with us.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So thank you once again. Could you start by giving us a quick resume of your experiences and your education?
Let's start real briefly from the beginning. My parents are in education. My dad taught at a high school. And so my upbringing was always around educators. So anytime we would go out in the community or anytime we would have the summers off, I was exposed to seeing what it's like firsthand, what it meant to be an educator. So my dad was the type of individual who would constantly help others who needed help the most. That was his number one thing in life was, Chris, as you get older, your life will be good if you help people who need help the most. That was it right there. That's life changing, right? So as I graduated high school, I got into education. I started off as a special ed teacher, which most people don't know because a lot of people know me as speech dude or speech therapy. But historically, I started off in the classroom teaching a large group of students. And then I transitioned into more of the individualized sessions, more small social groups, because I felt that was my niche. That was my area that I could really shine. And it's just been a fantastic journey thus far.
Well, we're so excited that that entire journey led you to where you are now, because we've been following you for quite some time now, and we know that you're very accomplished as a speech pathologist. But we've also gathered that you particularly work with individuals on the autism spectrum. So we wanted to know about where that passion really began and when you knew that that was your niche and that's what you were meant to do.
So yeah, initially when I had got into education, I had my first master's degree in mild moderate disabilities and had a broad scope of just learning disabilities in general. As I became more involved with one-to-one and being a speech therapist, autism and the definition of autism, with it being a social cognitive difficulty at times, most kids on the spectrum are going to have speech therapy. That's really how it works, right? So the majority of my caseload from day one up until current day has been kids on the spectrum. And so just through that alone, I've had a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge on working with those kids. And that's what really got me into it, the speech therapy route. I had realized that was something that I just was born with, the ability to work with kids on the spectrum. It's so crazy. I can't even tell you guys, because I would be cruising out as a teacher at lunch and I'd see a kid sitting by himself eating lunch. And I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to single-handedly make a change on this campus so no kid eats lunch by himself. So I would go up to the kids and I'd say, hey, I have an Xbox in my classroom. Why don't you guys join me in G303? We're going to have fun at lunch. We talk, we play games. I just got to give you a warning that you guys aren't going to beat me at any of the games because I'm not good. You're like, what? So yeah, it really became a thing where I built a community on campus so no kid would eat lunch alone. And it was just a passion that I have had, and I always will have that passion, because it started from where? Day one. My dad, help those who need help the most. I will tell you, the kids who need help the most aren't the kids who are getting straight Fs. It's the kids who sit alone at lunch without a friend. Because you know what? At the end of the day, academics is not ever a predictor of adult happiness. Isn't the social skills and the ability to meet people and hang out your adult happiness? So I can work with kids all day long that get straight A's and honors. That doesn't mean they're happy. That doesn't mean they're going to be happy when they graduate. So it really has become a passion for me to say, hey, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that these kids graduate with a smile on their face and that they have established friends, and that they, to the best of my ability and to the best of their potential, are going to be successful post high school. So that's really where I'm at.
Yes, I absolutely 100% agree with you on that. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I wanted to talk about the term that you have on your Instagram page. It's in your bio, and it's social emotional learning, especially for high school students with autism. A lot of our viewers might not really understand what that is and what that means. So could you give a quick definition of what that is and how it applies to our everyday life, so that our viewers can connect really to the autism community?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to give you my brief perspective from a student standpoint, and then I'll give you the definition of kind of the broad scope of it, because you'll see it say SEL, social emotional learning, right? And so it's really the ability to connect with others socially, the ability to control our own emotions, and how that all ties into being successful in life, right? And so anytime you hear social emotional learning, it's like, okay, that is most of us at some point on this planet are going to have some social difficulties or some emotional difficulties. I'll give you an example. We saw an entire world change this year with the pandemic in March, literally in the US, where we got an announcement, nobody's leaving. And then guess what happened? Emotions started getting heightened, didn't they? And then you know what happened? The news decided to tell everybody that we were running out of toilet paper. So what did everybody do? They didn't regulate their emotions. They didn't use their social emotional learning skills. So what did they do? They ran to Costco, they ran to Target, they bought all of it. So people like me would go buy it and they were all out. But we had an entire society that didn't know how to self-regulate. Now take that and put it with somebody who has a neurological difficulty with regulating these things for things that are a lot less minor, such as breaking a pencil right before a test, or a shoe coming untied when they're playing a soccer game, or whatever it might be, or running out of toilet paper when they're at the bathroom. So really that's what social emotional learning is, teaching individuals how to relate with others appropriately and how to control your emotions. And we all need it. Some a little bit more than others. And that's why we have therapy.
Right. That is such a great analogy. And, you know, I never even made that kind of connection, that the entire world right now is experiencing what we're craving to educate them about within the autism community, what happens in their daily life, and how we're not that much different from each other. We all experience these kinds of heightened emotions and difficulties with social regulation and interactions and all of that. So thank you for explaining that. As you're talking about this, I'm really thinking about how important that human interaction is. And from an outsider's perspective, looking in, for the first time seeing someone with autism, they might just assume that they're not interested in being social with one another, or being social because of their own differences in social connection. And we know that you're a DJ, right? So you're probably like the life of every single party, and that really helps pull out some of that social creativity. And we've talked a lot on this series about music therapy. So what are some ways that you incorporate your DJ skills and music into therapy sessions? And what are some benefits that you've noticed with this addition?
So you guys, maybe, I don't know if you saw recently, but I even sometimes promote it on my TikTok, on my Instagram, of just making up fun songs. When I'm in therapy on Zoom, we will take some vocabulary words that are related to the curriculum. I'll play a song, I'll play a line of the song, and then the students will have to make up a line of the song. We will make up a rap song. You've probably, I don't know if you saw me do the Fox and Sox, Dr. Seuss rap thing, but you could take anything and be creative with it and make it fun. Music is an outlet for making everything awesome and making everything fun. Matter of fact, I don't know if you can see my background, but I got my little keyboard here right behind me. Yeah, I'm in my little secret private yoga / meditation / piano and guitar room. But all of these things really boost motivation intrinsically, because the students are wanting to communicate. The students are wanting to work on vocabulary and work on inferencing and work on predicting and all of these things, you know? And so you could really use music for so many different things. You could take a song like Katy Perry's Roar, and it's like every single line of that song, I used to bite my tongue and hold my breath, da da da. And every line is a figurative language, abstract language line, to where you say, okay, what does this mean? I'm like a lion and I roar. You know, all of those things are educational. They're all great for our students who are gray area thinkers or literal and linear thinkers. So yeah, I just love it. I dance. We'll have a dance party. I've got a group of students, and it is just a good time. If you go on Spotify and type in "Hello Motivation, are you there?" I've created a Spotify playlist, and it's all of the songs that I use for my students. So we get them rocking and rolling. And it's pretty cool because there might be some songs you haven't heard. I'm constantly updating it. So for the viewers out there watching this, jump onto Spotify's playlist. I might even create a Speech Dudes engagement playlist. I don't know. I'm coming up with different things. We'll see.
I know we'll definitely take advantage of that now that we know of it. But also, yeah, that's a great. Oh,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Jump into that one.
Yeah, and I was going to say it's a great way for students to generalize some of those skills that they're learning in the classroom and be able to say, oh, hey, I recognize this figurative language or this vocabulary word, and be able to recognize it in their everyday life.
Absolutely. That key is also, as a therapist, as a parent, to try to stay in the loop. So you don't want to try to break down. Well, so I use my analogy of the Katy Perry song, but you really want to try and be current with things that the students enjoy. Because if not, they're going to look at you and go, oh my God, person's such a nerd. So yeah, I mean, I look at on Spotify's United States top 50 chart, the top 5 songs, you got to go, okay, mood is currently huge right now. Why don't we try to get the clean version of that? And, you just kind of know. You just got to be cool with the kids. So, yeah, absolutely, though. It makes it fun. It makes it intrinsically motivating. And absolutely, the kids will generalize the concepts a lot easier.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. I actually wanted to get to know a little bit more about you, because you do have a unique perspective being a male within our field. And I know in my cohort, we only have one guy in our entire cohort of over 30 women. And I'm not sure if Megan can say the same, but we generally know that the men are the minority in our field, but we hope to see that number grow over the years. I was wondering if there were any particular barriers or stereotypes that you had to face throughout your journey of becoming a speech language pathologist.
Oh gosh. When I was in grad school for my first master's, my supervisor at the university would come over to the high school, and it's a little bit different than having a supervisor or getting your hours for speech. So as a teacher, you would have somebody that would come into the class 4 times, evaluate your lesson, and kind of give you feedback. And my feedback was that my passion or my future should be in music. She said, you don't have the look. You just don't have the look for being a teacher. I will tell you that what she didn't know was that I would spend probably 15 hours a day lesson planning and preparing everything. So what I did was awesome for the students. But unfortunately, the appearance thing was what a first barrier was. My hair was way, way, way more wild. I toured on Warped Tour in a band. I sang in a band. My hair was blotchy, blonde. I'll have to post a yearbook picture. It's hilarious. But I was judged on the cover. Move forward to current day, and I have, full sleeve tattoos, and I show up to IEP meetings. And if it's somebody that's never met me, or I go to an IEP or a meeting and I have short sleeves on, I come in as a male, I'll sit down, not really say much. I might say, hi, my name's Chris, but we're waiting for everybody to get there. And every once in a while, not often, but I'll hear a parent or someone say, we're just waiting on the speech therapist. They should be here any minute. I'm like, oh, that would be me. They're like, wait, you're the speech therapist? I'm like, yeah. Why? What's so bad about that? They go, oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't think that you were the speech therapist. So there is definitely this difference of attending and being represented out there as a male SLP. A little bit different, but I enjoy it. And it has its hurdles and it has its benefits. But being a male SLP is fun. I've always advocated and encouraged all of my students or individuals on campus who go to Career Center Day to look into getting into being a speech pathologist in the future. So it's a lot of fun, though. I will tell you that there's 3.5% men in the field. We've got what, 300,000 SLPs in the US or something. And so you've got 3.5%. That's such a small number. And working with kids in high school on the spectrum are mostly boys. You're looking at 75%, maybe more, right? And it's really hard for a female to teach high school kids how to get a date to the prom, because female brains are different than male brains. When you guys watch Bachelor and Bachelorette, you see things differently than when I see it. When you watch shows like, Love on the Spectrum on Netflix, when I see these kids being coached by individuals, my brain just thinks differently, because I've been in certain situations to go, oh no, that's not what you want to do when you approach a girl. There's a bunch of things that you have to know before you go and you ask them out to the homecoming or things, you know what I mean? So it's really a benefit sometimes for me to work with boys on the spectrum, because I have a different perspective and I'm really comfortable with helping them out. When they show up to speech freshman year and they come and they say, what am I doing in speech still? I've been going to speech for 8 years. And I go, well, I'm here to help you out with some social stuff. They go, I already know how to socialize. I already know how to say hi. I'm like, I understand that, but I'm going to help you out with certain things that are going to guide you as you get older. Like what? How could you help me? And I said, well, you maybe are interested in getting a date to the prom or to homecoming, or maybe having a girlfriend in the next couple of years. And they go, what do you know about that? And I go, well, dude, social skills, man. If you don't have the right social skills, you will not succeed in the dating world. And they go, I'm in. The next thing you know, Mom, is there any way I could go to speech 5 days a week?
Talk about intrinsic motivation, right?
Yeah, you gotta find it. We all have it. We just gotta locate it for ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, we know how valuable it is to have some diversity represented, especially in our field. And we know that when there is representation of a certain demographic, a certain gender within fields, that inspires other people to get involved and they can see themselves in those positions. So without a doubt, we know that hopefully, you're inspiring some young boy out there to at least consider SLP as a future career. So as we talk about this, we're also kind of hitting the point of how harmful stereotypes can be sometimes. And that happens a lot with individuals with autism. There's a lot of misconceptions out there because of the typical behavior that you might see in an individual. So what do you feel is the most important thing for people to actually understand about autism, and maybe even in particular that adolescent age of autism?
This is a great question, and I'm going to think unconventionally here a little bit. The IEP, which is a document for the schools that students get on to receive services. The document's set up to find out what's wrong with the students. It's a disability-based document. There's literally one question on the entire 14-page document that says, what are the students' strengths and interests? And that's it. My school of thought when working with any behavior, whether the kid's on the spectrum or whether the kid has cerebral palsy or whether the kid has Down syndrome or whatever it is, we find their strengths and we work on what their strengths and interests are, because that's how you change behavior. You find out what they do and you find out what they do well. And that's what changes us all, right? And so what I will tell you when it comes to autism, on your question on the what was the thing, the misconception or the perceptions being off. When when you say it's an autism disorder, you automatically are saying that there's something wrong with it because you have the word disorder. And remember, my school of thought is that we focus on strengths and positive things. So it would be, I don't know what a great name would be, maybe autism spectrum ability. Like I have the ability to think differently than you. I have the ability to remember dates and timeframes and names a lot better than everybody else. I have the ability to really have passions with what I do in life. You know what I mean? And so I really think that I think that the best thing to do, from my perspective, is to work on identifying being autistic, work on owning it and saying, these are the great things that I know what to do. Yeah, maybe I struggle here, but don't we all struggle in areas? Like I suck at math. That's why I'm a speech pathologist. I suck at volleyball. But you know what? I know that. So I build on my strengths. And that's why I decided not to go be a financial planner. I decided to get into language. So it's like, yeah, I mean, everybody has their unique strengths and we should build on those.
Yeah, that is a really great point that I am continuing to learn. I was just telling Megan before we jumped on here today that I have a client where we are trying to bridge some of those difficulties with that child's strength. And what is that child good at? And how can we build onto that to eliminate some of the really challenging behaviors that we're seeing? And I think a lot of our colleagues are going to be facing this for years and years to come. So what are some of the most important things for not just our colleagues to know, but our community members in general to keep in mind when interacting with individuals with autism?
That it's invisible. That's number one, right? And so I should say two things. Knowing that individuals with autism, kids who are autistic, however we want to phrase it, you can't see it. And so how do you work on that as a community? You have to build an invisible wheelchair ramp, right? We have to do our best to be empathetic and to have an understanding. How do you do that? Educate everybody on the campus and everybody in the community and everybody who's involved, right? If everybody in elementary school was educated on what autism means. So for example, every once in a while, we might see a fellow classmate correct the teacher for something that didn't need to be corrected. Or maybe they'll get a B instead of an A and they might have big emotions. And that's okay because they have autism and we're gonna work with them. You build empathy with everybody and you will see success across the board, right? Francesca, you're in New York?
Mm-hmm.
Did it snow or is it going to be snowing?
Probably. I was going to say hopefully soon, but hopefully not soon. It's been in the 70s. Very nice.
In my area, we have never once experienced a snow day. Have either of you guys experienced a snow day? Right.
Plenty of them.
In my area, it never snows. It snows like in here for 30 seconds once every 5 years. You guys experience snow days. And so I share this story of the kids going on a day that snowed and the custodian's there and he's scraping the stairs and all the kids are waiting. And there's a kid in the wheelchair and he says, "Sir, would you mind shoveling all the snow off of the ramp?" And he says, "I got to get the stairs first for all these kids." And he goes, "But if you just shovel the snow off the ramp, we can all get up." And the story is so good because it really is an empathy thing. It's really one of those things where if everybody knows what's going on with each other, what our needs are, then we can meet each other's needs. It goes back to the very first thing I said, which is help those who need help the most. And once you do that, everybody benefits.
I love that. I mean, you're just chock full of analogies, but really they're so meaningful. And this is exactly the kind of language that we need to be using to help educate those who don't typically encounter individuals with any type of disability. It's hard to imagine if they don't come in close contact. So that's a perfect way to describe it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. As we're kind of talking about all of this, and especially emphasizing empathy, I feel like sometimes we can get really sensitive about empathy. We really want to make everybody feel included. Usually, once people know better, they want to do better. So there's this continuous debate about what kind of language is the most empathetic and welcoming for individuals with autism. And that's either person first language, where you say individual with autism, acknowledging them as a person first before their diagnosis. And there's identity first, where you say autistic person. So we wanted to know how you approach that and what's the most empathetic way to address a disorder or a disability, and why you might choose one label over the other.
So my thoughts are that it's up to the individual. You know, if the child's really young, then we just find out from the parents what they prefer. It's the same when in grad school, your professors, some are going to want to be called Bob, some are going to want to be called Dr. Bob, and some are going to want to be called Dr. Phillips. It's, you find out what they want to be called, you know, because with that analogy right there, see, I like to use analogies because they make a lot of sense to me. But, you know, sometimes you'll come up by somebody that says, when you say, hey, Bob, what's going on? And they go, it's Dr. Bob. And you're like, oh, and so you just got to find out what people like to be called, right? Because some doctors don't like to be called doctor at all. Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, you know what I mean? Some, whatever it is, it's the same with an individual with autism or an autistic individual. You just got to find out what their preference is. I think that as they, you know, and I don't know, I got to speak with more individuals, but as they get older, they start to find their own identity and what they would prefer. I think the most important thing, though, is to not for them. I think back again. What are the things, our strengths, our interests, and our abilities, and not kind of get around those.
Yeah, and I actually want to touch back onto something you mentioned earlier, which is that you try to help your students achieve a level of acceptance of their diagnosis. And I just recently changed my initiative to be more of a positive and appreciative stance within the community so that people can really understand and appreciate how their diagnosis has shaped their life. So for you, who has you've been a longtime advocate, how has practicing acceptance and inclusion impacted your life, both on the professional level and personal level?
On my campus, and you know what, this is a nationwide program called Best Buddies. On our campus, we did a little bit different called Best of Buddies. So we have the word of in there because if you have best buddies, then you have to have certain guidelines and things when you go out in the community. We wanted to be able to be flexible and say, hey, we're going to start our own curriculum. We're really going to have every single person on campus involved. I think that once you build a community of acceptance and inclusion with everybody, you will see that everybody benefits. That's just how it works. On our campus at lunch every Friday, well, not right now, but once we return, just like we did in the past, we would have our weekly meetings with whoever wanted to come. All individuals who are freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, come participate in dances. I would DJ at lunch. We would have games. We would do cha-cha slide and Cupid shuffle, play basketball, you name it. And so personally, that's impacted me because when you can include everybody, you will feel meaning. When you find meaning, you will then be happy. People think that you just try to seek happiness by doing something. It's like, well, what's your meaning though? And, you know, for me and other individuals within the field, when you can help include kids on the spectrum and you can include kids with disabilities, you really see the inclusion part providing meaning for your life. And you go, you know what I am doing is making an impact on their lives. And that's really what it's all about. So that's the personal end of things. On the professional level of things, it's really helped me because you want to lead by example. So on my Instagram and on my TikTok, you will see me post things that do things positive for students that are always upbeat and motivating. And when I do that, it sparks interest for others professionally to want to have fun too. If we sit around all day going, I've got to write reports, and you're just a straight arrow and you're just not having fun, well, then you're not, then it's going to impact everything else in your life. It's going to impact your personal life when you get home. So really, I feel like leading by example on a professional level helps others to help others. It's like a rippling effect, So if I were to take me and put me on a waterbed with every speech pathologist in the world, and I were to jump and be happy, everybody else is going to feel it. It provides a rippling effect of, whoa, I like these grooves. Here we go. So there. that's how it impacts me, and hopefully everybody else.
Yeah, I just saw a quote that kind of fits perfectly into this whole idea. I'd rather be excluded for including others rather than being included for excluding others. And I feel like that applies so much to what people in our helping profession typically do, but what we should really foster and cultivate in our own communities for people to adopt. So we talk a lot on Spectrum Sundays about how autism might impact children. And a lot of our education has really focused on that early childhood aspect of autism. But obviously, these children grow to be teenagers and adults. So how does therapy look different for an adolescent person with autism versus a child? And what are some of the things that we should be looking for to help them thrive?
Elementary school, the setup, I want to say probably across the nation, is you have herds of children. I used to be a coach for 5-year-old soccer players. And it's so funny because they kick the ball and there's like a swarm of bees going for it. And in elementary school, all of the kids are grouped together and they all go out to recess and they all do this. Yes, some of them are isolated a little bit, but for the most part, they're put in these groups. They hit 7th, 8th grade, sometimes just 9th. And you know what happens is that the neurotypical kids start to learn, hey, this is my group right here, the skaters. Or, hey, that's my group right there, the cheerleaders. Or, hey, that's my group, the punk rockers. Or, hey, and then they get these small subgroups. And then the kids on the spectrum have a hard time being involved in those groups. And they have a hard time making friends. And they have a hard time finding their little group, right? And so the dynamic changes when they get to my grades, right, in high school, because now speech therapy is no longer how to make eye contact. It's no longer how to use certain words or whatever it is. It changes to, honestly, it's really, what can we teach you what not to do in certain situations, not what to do. It's really trying the best to help them interact with their peers, because high school English now has kids get into small groups. All right, you guys, I want everybody to get into groups of 3 or 4, and we're going to talk about To Kill a Mockingbird. Your guys' group's going to talk about this, and your guys' group's going to talk about this, but you guys have to find your own group. And then our kids on the spectrum go, huh? Like, who am I going to talk to? I don't know these kids. In elementary school, you don't have that issue. The teacher puts them in herds. They're swarms. And so it's completely different. And it really changes the dynamic for these kids, because that marks the point of how do you interact with groups, not just in high school, but outside of high school, at church, and in extracurricular activities like sports, and then in music. And then what happens when they graduate is that college, the parents aren't allowed to intervene with the college professors. It's solely on the individual. So can you imagine that as the kids get older and they get to college, our kids, quote unquote, high functioning kids who were in our gen ed classes and AP and honors classes, who did great, they get to college and the teacher says, all right, get into groups, and you're going to have to meet at the library on the weekends. You're going to have to do Zoom meetings with your groups, and they don't have a group. Or they have to go live in a dorm room. And it's just really that's so important for everybody to know who's ever watching this, to go, okay, things change big time. 9th grade. We really need to work on these social emotional skills, the social emotional learning thing that we talked about a little bit ago. It's number one. Really is.
Yeah, it's really honing in on that independence for them and helping them really feel confident in who they are, but being able to do that independently and giving them some tools and strategies to be able to be successful in their social relationships. Absolutely.
So with that being said too, we think about what are our needs and what do we want? And, you know, as therapists or parents or whatever, but the big thing here is also, what do the kids want? I will tell you that although sometimes kids like to isolate themselves in a bedroom playing Minecraft and Roblox and Call of Duty and all that kind of stuff, these kids want to have friends because it's a lot more fun when you pass a level or you kill off a character in a game. And so I will tell you that all of these kids in high school want at least one friend. It's so critical. And so if you were to take all of the kids on a high school campus who are on the spectrum, and you were to say, you guys, here's your Harry Potter wand. Now, you can do two things with this wand. You can wave it in the air and you can get rid of all your academic problems, or you can wave it in the air and get rid of all your social problems. What are you going to choose? And what do you think the reply is going to be? 100%, they're going to go with getting rid of their social skills, because guess what? At the end of the day, the academics are the academics, but that's not going to lead to adult happiness or adult success. So I really advocate for, you know, hitting the kid's needs with social emotional learning.
Yeah, and that's why what you do is so important, and why we need more people like you in the position that you are, because you're helping shape those children, well, they're young adults, shaping their advocacy skills and therefore their resiliency as they get older. And I mean, life only gets more challenging, so they really have to learn how to do that at a young age with the support from people like you. So we really appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
So as we're starting to wrap up, is there an overarching idea or message that you would like our viewers to take away from the conversation that we've had so far?
If I could put a billboard out on the freeway and it would have a message, what would my message be to everybody?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Empathy is a superpower. That would be my message. That's Beach Dude's message.
Everybody can live by that. And I feel like that's also a skill. Empathy is a skill that we all should work on and continuously develop throughout our time. And it might look a lot different as we grow and depending on the people that we encounter. I love that so much.
Absolutely.
So
you really is a skill, because I think that oftentimes, even to the extent of when we see something happen to somebody and we don't provide empathy, that's okay, but we got to fake it. We got to be like, you know what? I'm so sorry to hear that. Even if we're really not, you know, just be good at faking it. That's another skill in itself.
Yeah, and so often we talk about the skills that we're trying to teach these individuals. Well, there's some skills that we need to work on as well, and that's certainly one of them.
I'll give you an example.
No matter who we encounter.
Christmas is coming up. My mom oftentimes buys me clothes that I can buy my own clothes, and I have a certain style. So, you know, it's not really an empathy thing, but I should be more of a perspective taking thing, that I have to know that when I open it, I have to go, oh, Mom, this is the best. So I freaking love this. This is so nice. It's going to look so good. And in my mind, I'm actually saying, Mom, where did you get this so I can get a refund and get something I really want?
Right, because in those moments, it's not only about you, but it's about making them feel appreciated and making them feel welcome and all of the above, just so that they know that they did the right thing.
Absolutely.
So what are some upcoming events that you might have planned? I know that things might look a little different with COVID. You might be utilizing TikTok a lot more. What are some things that you're kind of looking forward to continue spreading your message and educating others?
Like what, um, can you clarify? You mean like some events coming up that I'm going to be doing?
Yeah, either events or if that's just something that you're doing virtually, what are some things that you have planned?
So December 7th and 8th, I'm doing an all day breakout session, speech sessions on a variety of topics for the Bureau of Education and Research. So it's a huge company. I think most people in education know it. BER. Everybody gets those flyers in their mail or their mailbox at work. And so I'm doing that with myself and two other SLPs. So yeah, it's a full blown 2-day event. Um, and it's going to be a lot of good stuff. I'll be talking about fluency disorders, some avoidance. I should stick on topic. I'm going to be talking a little bit about technology and some things that we can use for kids on the spectrum. I'll be talking about some perspective taking activities and things that with kids on the spectrum. Gosh, when's the date? In January 13th. It's hands down the largest speech pathology and speech therapy event for webinars. It's called SLP Summit. It's huge. Everybody knows about those. So I'm lucky I'll be the guest of and one of the speakers. That's January 13th at 4 p.m. my time, Pacific Standard Time. And that'll be huge. There's 5 other speakers that are very prominent in the field as well. I don't know if I can't announce the names, I don't think right now, but keep an eye out for that. And then in February, which I think might be open to everybody, I am a guest speaker for South Carolina Speech and Hearing Association and the closing DJ for their party. And then in March, I will be speaking and will be the closing DJ for the California Speech and Hearing Association. So those are the most immediate things I have coming up. They're going to be awesome. They're going to be full of energy and fun. So if anybody attends those, you've got to make sure that you have some popcorn and your favorite beverage.
They have you working double time. You better get paid double for those events.
Absolutely. Right? That's what I'm talking about. Jeez.
So for our followers who want to stay tuned for all of those events coming up, how can they follow you on social media? Do you have websites, TikTok handles?
Yeah, so it's ubiquitous between all of my accounts like Twitter and TikTok and Instagram. It's just at Speech Dude. So yeah, I mean, you can find me on any of those platforms. And then my website, speechdude.com. It's got my Instagram feed connected live to it. So anytime you see that I post something that you enjoy on Instagram, it goes to my website. So those can be used for therapy sessions or just a quick, we'll check this 30-second fun video out. It also has some activities with video-based lessons that are super fun and engaging. And a lot of it's for the social emotional learning stuff for the, appropriate for high school kids and beyond. And of course, there's a little blog that I'll continuously updating with those dates that I just talked about and other events that I'll be doing. They seem to be coming in and out here with a lot of fun stuff. So that's absolutely the place to go for the updates and the tips.
Well, we look forward to, yes, we look forward to continuing to watch everything that you're doing. Amazing things, incredible things, but especially because you bring this unique perspective and this energy that we typically don't see within this field. We can really just see your passion shining through. So thank you so much for sharing all of your insight with us today. We've really enjoyed this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Again, you guys are awesome. I really appreciate the time that you reaching out to me and having me be a guest on here. I really appreciate that.
Of course. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Please look out for Speech Dude and everything that he will be up to, and we will see you next week on Spectrum Sundays.